What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Heart and Soul. Today, I'm joined by Kate Morton, who is joining me virtually all the way from Austin, Texas, one of my favorite cities in the US. And Kate is a registered dietitian and the founder of, I want to make sure I pronounce it right because you might think I'm saying something else, but Funk. Funk, Funk It Wellness, which brings a blend of education and humor. I have watched your Instagram reels; they're funny. Humor to destigmatize conversations around our periods, sexuality, and all the things. So, Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you. I would love for you to just start by I know there's so much more to what you do. So if you could share with my listeners a little bit more about who you are and what you do, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah. So, again, my name's Kate. I'm a registered dietitian. I've got a master's degree in human clinical nutrition. I also have a private practice where I help women heal their hormones. And really, actually, a lot of it's turned into gut health work too, because they're so interconnected. I'm also the founder of Funk It Wellness. We make eating for your hormones and your cycle super easy through real food supplements like seed cycling. I also created the very first 100% food based vitamin for the menstrual cycle, which has been a crazy journey. We had to do like 130 test tastes to make sure it has all the nutrients through real food and actually tasted good. So that's a recent accomplishment. We just completed a clinical study on that, which was super exciting. But yeah, I love to read. I have a dog. I live here in Austin. I like to talk about periods a lot. That's probably what majority of my life revolves around at this point, and I'm really excited to hang out with you guys today.
Wow, that's amazing that you just did that. That sounds like a really tedious project to like take on, and the fact that you like launched it is
It was
amazing.
very tedious and is one of those things where I'm like, huh, I see why other people don't do this. This is actually really hard to create. And now I see why there's not another one on the market, but it was totally worth it. And it's really supportive for people coming off of birth control, which was a big request we were getting. And so I was like, look, the girlies are worth it. We're going to create this. It's going to be great. But yeah, it's out now and it's all worth it.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll have to put a link to that in the show notes. That's really cool. Okay, so you like to talk about periods. We love to talk about periods as women. It happens to us every single month, every 28 to 30 days, hopefully. But if not, sometimes different timing. And it's something that's not talked about enough, I feel like, for something that happens so often and controls so much of how we think and feel and act. So I think it's amazing what you're doing. What led you into this specific line of work when it comes to wellness?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be real with you guys. I'm an accidental entrepreneur, is like what I always call myself. Like, I never meant to start a business. I thought I was gonna work in the pediatric pulmonary unit as a dietitian for the rest of my life. And then I moved, and I loved that job, but I moved to New Zealand with my husband, and I couldn't be a dietitian over there because I'd have to go back to school. So I started working at Lululemon and like marketing, and then I moved to another startup. And I also got off birth control kind of in the middle of that, when in my early 20s, trying to build my career. And what I didn't realize, I was so excited to come off birth control because I was one of those people that it just never, I mean, it worked, but like I had really bad side effects. I was bleeding all the time. I had the implant called Nexplanon in my arm. It was just a hot mess. I was so excited when I came off of birth control. But what I didn't realize was all those things that were bothering me and all the reasons why I got on birth control, I never had dealt with the root cause of them, which is something that's really interesting. I don't think we're really taught that like painful periods, like really extreme cramps, having hormonal acne, extreme mood swings, fatigue, extreme bloating, like all of these things actually are they're common, but they're not medically normal. Like your period shouldn't completely take you out. I had no idea about that. So I walked out of there with a prescription for 5,000 condoms because that was like what they did for like, they're like, oh, you're not going on birth control. Okay, here's like basically like a lifetime supply of
Is this in New
condoms
Zealand?
in New Zealand.
That's kind of
And
awesome. At least
it was awesome.
they give you what you need.
And it was free. Like, I could just go get at the pharmacy anytime for free, but I didn't get any education on, like, what was coming next, and that's kind of where it hit me really hard, and I started talking to my friends about, like, "Gosh, my periods are just awful. They're, like, super irregular. My acne's out of control. I'm doing everything right. I just don't understand." And they were like, "Oh, yeah, my period sucks too, and, like, this is why I've been on birth control for so long," and all these things, and it just kind of hit me as an epiphany, like, this can't be, like, how over half the population lives every single month. And then I started doing research and I learned that 90% of us have at least one life-altering menstrual symptom, whether that's you're bloated and your clothes don't fit, or you have to stay home from work or school because your cramps are so bad, or you're getting migraines. And so it just prompted me to be like, can we fix this through food? And I was working with a doctor over there. I was about to go on Accutane, and he was like, I just have a few more things I want you to try. And another friend had also told me about seed cycling too. So a friend had told me about it, a doctor had told me about it. I was like, I have to give this a try, even if I think it's BS, like, because I couldn't find peer reviewed research on it at the time. I tried it, and in 3 months, all my acne was healing. I had no new acne. Then my cycles went from like 60 days to like 50 days to 45 to 35 to 28. And so then and then I started ovulating regularly every month, and I started learning about that. And so it just opened this floodgate of, wow, there's so much I don't know about my own body. Maybe this is why I'm so disconnected from it. Maybe this is why I haven't taken care of her the way I should. Maybe this is why so many of those inner conversations are ones of like, you have to do this to do this, to do, like, go to the gym and make sure you don't eat too much, and like just all of these things. And it was an epiphany to me that if I learned to love my own cycle and my own body, I could learn to love myself. And then in turn, I could help other people do the same thing. And that's really where it came from. And then I started making the product in my kitchen. So seed cycling, we can go into it in a minute. It's ground pumpkin and flax and ground sesame and sunflower for different phases of your cycle. I was grinding the seeds in my Blendtec blender, like with like gloves and a mask, and I was like packaging them up. And then people were coming to pick them up, and my friends were doing it, and then their friends started doing it. And then I was like, maybe this is something that could really help other people. So I called over 300 manufacturers, figured it out, and then now somehow I've been running a business for the past 3.5 years. So that's like a long story of how I got here, but it's definitely been a very personal journey.
And that's like the best type of entrepreneurship, like, I guess, route to take is when it is something you're passionate about, something where you've like truly seen results from or experienced like transformation from, and you just want to share it with others. So I love that, like, it like motivated you so much to be like, I need to share this, like that's like real marketing. You're like, it's not just like me trying to like make money. Like, I need people to know so that they feel better. Okay, so seed cycling. I don't know much about it. Will you kind of go into like what that entails and if it's different with each, I guess, like phase of your cycle and all the details?
Yeah. Okay. First, I'll do the 4 phase overview because then they'll make more sense. So, I did not know this. And if you're listening, you might not know this. So, I didn't know that your menstrual cycle and your period were two different things. I always just like, oh, your cycle is your period. That's it. Nothing. I didn't even realize all the other things that are going on in our bodies throughout the month. And it's actually amazing. So, on your period, this is when you're bleeding. You guys know that, I'm sure, but just
Yeah.
to clarify, this is when you're bleeding. And
FYI.
so, FYI, if you didn't know, this is when you're bleeding. You actually have the lowest hormones of the entire month. So when anyone tries to come at you like, "Oh, are you on your period? Are you hormonal?" Actually, they're so wrong. They're so physiologically wrong. And I just love to point that out to people, but this is kind of why you're tired. You've got a little bit more inflammation. If you think about it, your body's shedding your uterine lining. That's like actually a really big task. And your uterus is a muscle and it's like pushing it out. So that's your period. Then after your period, and that's like your winter time. They say like inward, cozy, all those things. Then you move into your follicular phase. Estrogen starts rising. You're prepping for ovulation, and your follicles that will be released as eggs are getting ready. This is like your springtime, so you might feel really creative. For me, I really crave like those fresh fruits and veggies, a little bit more high impact workouts. Like I love to run and lift weights and, maybe do an intense reformer Pilates class, be very social. Then luteinizing hormone spikes and testosterone spikes, and you release your egg and you ovulate. And the crazy thing is, your fertile window is actually like the 4 days before you ovulate and the 24 hours after. It's like those 5 days, 6 days of the month where you're fertile. Then after the egg is released, it creates something called a corpus luteum, which is like a little mini organ that basically gets created every single month and releases progesterone. Then you go into your luteal phase, which I break the luteal phase up into two. So, like the week after ovulation, your hormones are still pretty high. You might still be feeling like a lot of energy. But then around day 21, if the egg's not fertilized, progesterone starts to drop. And this is the time that's typically associated with PMS, where you're experiencing a lot of those symptoms like mood swings, fatigue, if you feel really emotional or bloated. or like crampy or like cryy, like that's like the time. And it's usually when progesterone drops. And then it starts all over. So just to give you some background, like if you are not on birth control and you have a period, you are literally doing that every single month, which is like wild to me, just like as a first full stop.
Yeah, like men could never.
No, they could never. They never. And like, this is the other thing. Like, if you go to do a work, I swear we're going to get into seed cycling in a minute. This is like the last thing I just want to say. Like, if you've ever like eaten something and it's felt really good in one part of the month, and then you've eaten the same thing and your stomach reacts differently, it's hormones. Or if you've
Right.
gone to the gym and you're like, I killed this workout 2 weeks ago. Why is it so hard today? Hormones. Like it's
Yeah.
not you, it's just your biology telling you to adjust and adapt, which is kind of where seed cycling comes in. So you need different nutrients at different phases in your cycle. And I love the concept of like cycle syncing and mapping out your grocery list, but it can be tricky. And so seed cycling makes it just simple where you don't have to think about it as much. So on your period and in your follicular phase, so days 1 through 14, you're going to have ground pumpkin and ground flaxseed, and that has magnesium, omega-3 fatty acids. It has phytoestrogens, which a common misconception is like, oh, phytoestrogens cause more estrogen. They're actually similar to an adaptogen if you think about it that way. If your estrogen's low, it'll help to bring it up. If it's high, it'll help to bring it down. And then you also have zinc, which is really important for ovulation. And then after you ovulate, that's when you start your ground sunflower and ground sesame seeds, rich in vitamin E and vitamin B6, which are clinically proven to help with like breast tenderness, painful periods, mood swings. You've got calcium, which is also really important for painful periods and regular periods, a small amount of phytoestrogens, and you have selenium to support thyroid health. And so if you think about it, it's just seeds are so simple, but like nature kind of intended for a lot of this to be simple. And I think as humans, we've really overcomplicated a lot of it. And I'm not against biohacking, I'm into all of that, but it's really not always that hard. And so seed cycling sounds simple because it is simple. It is hard to stay
Yeah.
consistent sometimes, but it's a simple concept.
That's so interesting. Didn't know any of that. I mean,
Mm.
I just started learning. I remember when I used to be a really big like marathon runner
Ooh.
and like half marathons. I've done a couple fulls, but like that's not my jam. But when I was like really into training for those, I didn't know about like my body feels so good during this week and then I'm like a minute slower per mile during this week and like what is that about? Like I'm like I've been training for this, this is my moment. And I then a couple years later got certified as a trainer and started learning about exercises to do during each phase of your cycle. And that was just like so eye opening to me because of the energy aspect of it. It's like, I think sometimes as women, we think because we have to persevere through so much, like we'll just push through this pain or we'll just push through this fatigue. And really, it's like, what if we just like embrace that, like, this is what our body needs and it's different. And so giving yourself a lot of grace when it comes to exercise was something I had to learn for each phase of my cycle. Like I'm not going to run 5 miles every time or every week because I won't feel that great. And I might like want more like Pilates or bar, like slower movements, less hit workouts. And then some weeks like I'm going to feel really hitty. And it was just wild to learn that, and I also, like, never was on birth control throughout I'm sorry, I'm just like, here's my story."
No,
I
I
was never
love
on
it. I
birth
love
control.
hearing everyone's story. I'm like, please tell me your story of when you fell in love with your cycle because this makes me so happy.
I was never on birth control, and I always had a really regular cycle, and I know that's, like, not just dependent on birth control, like, I'm not anti-birth control by any means, like, your body, your
Also,
choice kinda
same,
thing.
just to
Y
clarify
Yeah.
in case anyone got the wrong impression.
Yeah, and then when I got married, I was like, "I don't wanna have a baby just yet," and I got on birth control when I got married, and I was only on it for, like, a year, year and a half, like, not long at all, but I even started noticing some changes, not necessarily in the timing of my periods, but in how my periods felt and how I felt. I was in my moods, like, I just felt like kind of a different person at times, and I then was like, well, eventually I do want kids, so I'll just get off birth control and we'll just do like the natural way of like, tracking. And um I have felt so much better ever since getting off of it. Now everybody is different and you just like you listen to your body and your doctor's advice, obviously. But I've since we've had a child, we're pregnant with our second, but we've had a lot of fertility issues. And I know that there's like so much like speculation and theories around, birth control with fertility and foods we eat with fertility, like the things that we put into our bodies that are perceived as like societally normal that like just weren't how people lived back in the day, and that's why they were able to have babies. But like the infertility rate in our nation is insanely drastically
It's
rising.
wild. Yes.
And that's that can't be just random, you know what I mean? So like that's why I really am interested in the seed cycling of it all, because what we put into our bodies affects like how our bodies react. Um
Yeah.
I just went off on a tangent. I don't even know where I was going. I didn't even have a question. I just was
But
like,
I feel like it's so relevant and important because, like, also, like, so another thing is like endocrine disrupting chemicals, which are in a lot of like body washes, like, and things that we put on our skin or our hair or our clothes, or you think about like washing sheets in anything that like has endocrine disrupting chemicals. You spend 8 hours skin to skin on your sheets. Like, there's just so many things, like, not to overwhelm anyone, because like I definitely went down the rabbit hole and freaked out and like threw everything out of my house. And I don't think that's the right approach either. But I just think being a little more conscious of like, what are we consuming? What are we putting on our bodies, putting in our bodies? When we were when I was starting this company, one of the biggest things for me was sourcing. I was like, these need to be organic. They need to be coming from good sources. They also, on top of that, need to be processed in a way that preserves the nutrients, and they need to be protected from light, and they need to get to the customer in like 3 to 4 months. And if you think about grocery stores, things sit on the shelf for years. And so, I mean, maybe not years, but they can sit in a warehouse, a distribution center. Like, the current model is really interesting when it comes to grocery, and that's also a side tangent, but that's why we kept our business direct to consumer online, able to get it to the customer, because we could control sourcing and we could control how long it was sitting.
yeah, that's huge. And we don't think about those things, we just go to the grocery store and we buy food. And I am let me be completely honest, listeners, I am not a clean person. Like in hell. Like I shower, but I shower with like probably a lot of toxins. But it is really eye-opening once you just start, I guess, doing the research to see how many things are impacting our future, like our overall health, things that you don't think will affect you. Like I never thought having kids would be an issue. Like you just always think growing up, you get married, you get pregnant, you have kids, and it's just something that never crossed my mind that I would have to deal with issues with that. And so it is important to think about what we put in our bodies, how we treat our bodies during each phase, and what toxins we're using to impact ourselves. I need to be better about that. Like I'm preaching to myself, but it is like pretty cool that you do like a direct to consumer in that way so that listen, I'm practicing what I preach. Like this, they're getting this.
And that's why we did it. And like, look, we probably could have grown faster if we had taken another approach, but it's not worth it to me. Like, the reason I started this company, I'm going to tell you one thing: if you want to make money, don't start a consumer package like food as medicine company, because it's like not the place to be making money, but it is a place to be helping people and to show them like companies really can care about you, and they can care about like your health, because like I eat these products every day. And like, circling back to toxin, I call it like toxic load. You don't have to cut out everything. Like, I always tell people, like, if we try to cut out every single chemical that was bad for us, it just would be impossible with the society we live in. So like, even just picking a few things, like looking at the pods you wash your dishes with, or maybe looking at the sheets you sleep in and laundry detergent, because those are things you're like kind of touching every single day. Like, I
Yeah.
still wear perfume, I just don't wear it every day, but I still wanna smell nice. Like, I still
Yeah.
wear deodorant, which actually I didn't wear deodorant for all of last year, and that was rough. So, I decided that that was a risk I was willing to take to not be stinky and be like socially accepted. So I think it's like one of those things where it's personal to everyone. There's like no one size fits all, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Like no matter what change you make, it's like a positive one.
Yeah. In my line of work, if I didn't wear deodorant, like I would not have a client because I sweat for work for a living,
I
and
know.
that would be a disaster. So, yes, I wear deodorant as well.
So it's like one of those
Some
things where it's like you just pick what you want, like pick and
Yeah.
choose.
I always say, like, we have this workout, we have this programming on Mondays where when you finish your round, you get to pick your poison. You get to pick what exercise you wanna do. So just pick your poison, you know what I mean? Like, quite literally.
And the other thing I always tell people is like if all of this is going to eternally stress you out, also like that then just don't think about it because stress is also something like we don't want to be adding more of. I'm all about giving
Totally.
people the information and then you get to choose like what you do with it. You don't have to do anything with it.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I like, when I was, like, scrolling through your Instagram, like, I like your style of educating because sometimes you do follow people on Instagram or see people's social medias, and you're so intimidated by them because it seems so, unreachable to get to that level of discipline and, um, yeah, I guess discipline's the word. That and regimen, really, that you're just like, I'm gonna give up." Like, it has to be an all or nothing mentality. Same thing with, like, exercising or healthy eating. Like, some people are like, "Well, if I can't exercise every day, then I'm not gonna exercise at all." I'm like, "Okay, well, if you exercise 3 times a week, like, you might live longer." So, like, that's not like, you can do that. Um,
Yeah. And that's been my
it
big epiphany about exercise too is like, guys, I also was really into half marathon running. I've not had the best body image my whole life. And cycle syncing my exercises has been a game changer. And also, like, I don't know where I heard this quote. It was on another podcast, but they were talking about keeping promises to yourself. So for me, it's like even if I exercise for 5 minutes, like I kept that promise to myself. So I like love to hear you as a trainer saying that. I'm like, okay, good. I'm on the right track with my exercise mentality.
Yeah. I mean, I same, same, same as far as, like, my history with exercise goes. It was very negative for a long time, very much, like, obsessive, compulsive, and robbed the joy out of it, and also robbed a lot of my relationships, robbed my work. It robbed so many things in my life because I was so hyper focused on this one thing. It was all that mattered. And so to give yourself leniency in that and what you eat and just like balance in your life, you become a better person. You become more loving, you become more present, you become more engaging with people, intentional. And so if you can only commit to, 3 times a week for 20 minutes at a time, that is so much better than doing like feeling like I have to go 60 minutes for 6 days a week. Like that's crazy. Who has time for that? And people who do have time for that aren't probably the most loving people to the people
And
in
your
their life.
cycle is probably not gonna love that. Like, let's just be
Yeah.
real. Like, your cycle is probably not gonna love that, and that's, like, why truly, like, I do love seed cycling because I feel like I can get very obsessed with food, so when I think about trying to sync every single food item to my cycle, it's very overwhelming and, like, borderline unhealthy for me to think about, but then, like, seed cycling's nice because I don't have to think about it, but then it's also helped me a lot. Like, that's the other thing, guys. Like, I don't know if you can see the video, but like my skin has like been clear for 3 years, and that's the first time in my entire life that's been a thing.
Wow. And I think the easy and convenient is key because something can still be helpful and convenient and easy to do, easy
Yes.
to introduce into your life, instead of like that all or nothing mentality. Like I love that it's easier. Like that is more appealing to me than being like, okay, I'm in my luteal phase. Like I need to eat this kind of fruit and that kind of vegetable. Like that's overwhelming to me. So it's just to know like, oh, it's just like some seeds. I got this.
You just add
Um,
it to what you're already eating. We're not taking anything away. We're just adding something new to nourish your body a little bit more.
Like, that being said, do you, like is it something that you blend in with things or you, like, add to liquid or, like, do you just eat actual seeds? Like,
That's
what's
such
the
a
deal?
good question. So, we grind them for you. That's why I, like, was so concerned about sourcing, how to grind them, how to get them to you because, once you grind seeds, you have about like 3 to 6 months, and so it's really easy. You can just put them on top of what you're already eating. You can put them in a smoothie if you want. A lot of people do like smoothies, smoothie bowls, oats, like things that are easy. I do like I can't have dairy, unfortunately. It's like one of the saddest pieces of my life at the moment. But I put it in
Okay.
like coconut yogurt or almond yogurt. That's what I had for breakfast. I'm like a routine person, so I always eat my seeds at breakfast. So I like to check things off my list and I'm like, okay, yay, done. Did something good for
I'm
my
the same way.
body. Chia pudding's another good one, but you can put it in soup, salad, tacos. The only thing is don't bake with them because over 140 degrees Fahrenheit is when the nutrition of the seed starts to be degraded,
Oh, good to know.
which is interesting.
I can do that. I Kate, I can do this. I
We love
can
that.
I can really make this a part of my routine and I'm gonna order some. Okay, I have 4 questions that I ask every single guest. So I'm gonna ask you those first, and then I'm gonna give you a chance to give my listeners like the best place to find you, follow you, and we'll link all that in the show notes, obviously. But
Perfect.
first question that I ask every guest is what is something that you're currently obsessed with right now?
Ooh, I am really obsessed with my red light that I have at my house. It was like a Black Friday splurge that I bought for myself, but I found a pretty affordable one on Amazon that's like still good. And I have Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. And so I'm always trying to find like ways to support my body naturally because it's an autoimmune disease. And there's some new research on autoimmunity and red light therapy. And it's also really good for skin and like anti aging. So I'm just, like, obsessed with it. I just do 10 minutes in the morning, like, after I shower, and it's just become my little, like, meditation time, and I feel like I talk about it all the time.
I see ads for that all the time on Instagram. They always come up. Wait, this is so random, but do you follow Tanya Rad?
No. Do I need
You
to?
you should. She has she's just like a girl's girl, but she's a radio host with Ryan Seacrest. And then she also has a podcast with Becca Tilley, who used to be on The Bachelor, and they're just like two besties who like talk about girly things. And she has Hashimoto's and she's
Mm.
regulated all of it through nutrition. And then she's also obsessed with period talk. And she always like posts like
I need
workouts
to
that
know
she does
her.
during each phase. And she'd be a fun follow for you. She like makes reels about it and everything. She's cool. Tanya
Amazing.
Rad.
Okay, I'm gonna look her up after this.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is what is something that you're really looking forward to in 2024?
Hmm. So many things I'm looking forward to, but I think the thing I'm really excited about is I'm turning 30 in April, and I'm just actually really excited about this birthday. Like, I feel like my 20s have been so about like really truly getting to know myself, taking the time, taking risks and chances, and I'm excited to move into this next decade that's hopefully going to be like my motherhood decade and my family decade and just like kind of move on to a new chapter. I'm feeling really optimistic and excited about like the decade of 30.
Yeah, I love the 30s. I'm 5 years in and couldn't recommend it enough.
That's what
It's
everybody says. They love the
best.
30s. They're like, "It's the best time of
You're
your
so much
life."
you're just so much more confident, you have so much more perspective, you let things roll off your back easier, you don't, like, feel pressure from everything and everyone, there's less hustle, it's just, like,
I'm already
so much
feeling that.
better.
Like, I spent the whole day on Sunday reading a book, and I was like, "Who am I? Am I learning
Yeah.
to relax? Is this a thing?"
Am I resting? This is weird. Now having kids throws a wrench in the whole rest thing, but it's
True.
so worth it. It's so worth it. Okay, my 3rd question is what's something that you really love about yourself
Ooh. I think
right
something
now, like
I
in this season of life?
Yeah, I think something I really love about myself is the commitment I've made to myself to actually love myself in the past year. Like, I started therapy. I've really, like, got this Hashimoto's diagnosis. So I've really been getting in touch with my body and, like, just like the kinder self talk, I think is such a underrated piece of healing. And so I think, like, learning to have that, like, kinder inner monologue is something I'm really proud of right now.
I love that answer, and I'm so proud of you for getting to that point.
Thank you.
Okay, final question is if you could leave my listeners with, like, a little Post-it note of, like, truth that they can or encouragement that they can stick on their mirror or computer, what would that be? Something
I
short and sweet.
think short and sweet would be you already have everything you need. And I think that's something that I've just really been focusing on this year is like everything you need is inside of you. Like, you're powerful, you're amazing. Like, you already have it all.
That's good, and short and sweet, so we can remember that.
It's hard
You
to be
already have
I'm a
all
long-winded.
the Okay, Kate, give, my listeners the best place to, connect with you.
Yeah, so my personal Instagram is carbs, like a piece of bread, carbs and Kate. And so that's where you can find me. I also work with hormone clients one-on-one. The link to apply, I have about a 2-month wait list, but it goes quick. You can click through that. And then funkitwellness.com is where you can find everything seed cycling. And funk.it.wellness on Instagram is where we do like a lot of our fun education. And we've got lots of good ebooks and amazing things.
Yes. All right, listeners, I'm gonna link all of that in the show notes so that it's easy for you to find. Definitely go follow her. She's a fun follow. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, listeners, I will talk to you next week. Bye.